Op caught his boyfriend cheating with another girl, so he lashed out and kicked both of them out. First story. Op caught his boyfriend cheating with another girl, so he lashed out and kicked both of them out. Then his boyfriend went to OP's father and falsely claimed that Op had cheated on him. His delusional father disowned Op without even listening to his side of the story. Now he wants to reconcile after learning the truth. Quick edit. I forgot to mention this was a throwaway, as my ex actively uses Reddit and loves these kinds of stories. I'm so hurt, lost, and angry that I want to throw up all of my organs and just pass out. All names are fake to protect the identities of those involved, and I apologize for the length. For context, I am a bisexual, very effeminate-looking man. To the point where it is an odd day if I am not mistaken for being a female. I lived with my dad, 48 years old, for my entire life due to my mom dying from complications of childbirth. We were each other's best friends from day one, and when I came out to him as bisexual at 16, he came out to me right back as bisexual, saying it must run in the family before we both laughed. I already figured this out as he had just as many one-on-one sleepovers with men as he did with women. I never minded as long as he was happy, then good for him. I was never neglected. I never wanted for anything, and we had pretty much the perfect father-son relationship. I met my now ex-boyfriend, Tobias, in my senior year of high school as he was a transfer student. We hit it off instantly, became a couple, and were so close to the point that I wanted to marry this man ASAP. We both attended the same college and got an apartment together. Life was going amazingly well. A week after my 20th birthday, I walked in on him sleeping with a girl I had never met. I flipped out on him, and we both cursed each other out through tears, with him pulling out the cheater's classic card of, "You haven't been there for me, I just fell out of love." I kicked him and his girlfriend out right after. I apologized to her. They hadn't even known each other longer than a day as they met at a cafe and came back for an afternoon of fun time, and I didn't have the heart to be mad at her as he just didn't tell her. Well, after I had spent an hour packing everything of his, I got a phone call from my dad, cussing me out and calling me a horrible person for cheating. I was immediately taken aback and tried to tell my side of the story, but my dad wasn't having any of it and told me to lose his number for a while, as no son of his would ever be able to cheat. I couldn't help it. I broke down and began crying and bawling as this piece of trash lied to my dad before I even thought of telling him and tanked our relationship. I decided to move out of the apartment later on with the help of my cousin, Eric, 24, who lived about 10 minutes away and who hadn't heard either side of the story yet. I told him the whole story and told him not to contact my dad about me, as his choosing my ex's side before even trying to hear me out basically ruined all chances he had of me trusting him again. We got packed, and I moved a city away, finished my bachelor's degree in computer science, and am now currently working as a software engineer. I met my current girlfriend, Amanda, 21F, after we were both part of a math class project. I took my math credits late and became friends. I was really hesitant to open myself back to love, but we took it slow, and I told her everything about what happened before we ever got serious. I never thought I could love again, and now I absolutely adore her to pieces. She's funny, kind, smart, and pretty, and we share so many interests. Now, onto the incident that happened 2 days ago. I was in the kitchen washing dishes while a man was mopping our living room floor. I heard a knock on the door, and not expecting any packages or any visitors, went and opened the door. I saw my dad standing there, looking like total CR at P. His eyes were bloodshot, his face was red, and he looked like he had just finished crying. He asked if we could speak, and I immediately slammed the door in his face and ran to my bedroom. Amanda heard the commotion and came to get me, asking what the matter was. I told her that my dad was at the door, and as soon as those words left my mouth, I saw a vein pop out of her head. She then proceeds to go out there and scream at him for what he put me through over the last year, telling him he has no nerve to show up here and to get his sorry b.tt out of here. He told her to tell me that he learned the truth from Tobias after he texted him out of guilt and confessed to everything, and then he left. I went on my Facebook Messenger account, which I haven't used in months, and there I saw that he had sent me messages detailing everything he told my girlfriend, along with his new phone number, and that he had gotten my address from Eric after prying for it for days. I haven't blocked him yet, and I asked for a meeting for him to tell me in his own words, face to face, everything that happened. I told him that this was not to be considered an attempt at reconciliation and that I did not know if I could ever trust him again. He understood, and we are meeting at a local park later today, the 10th of September. Just to clarify, as it is currently 2:24 a.m. and I haven't been able to sleep, I do not require advice. I just needed to vent my situation here, but I do appreciate any insight or advice you guys may have. To clarify as well, I will be updating this post or making a new one with the details of our meeting. I do not plan on reconciling now or in the foreseeable future. Another quick edit. I forgot to mention that Amanda will be coming with me for moral support but will be hanging back. She has been my rock, and I love her so much. Update. Hello all. I want to thank each and every person who commented showing their support and giving me advice. You guys helped me formulate my plan for confronting my dad. For reasons I will get into later on in this post, I will now be referring to my dad by his first name, James, fake like the other names. I could hardly sleep at all and only managed to get in around 3 hours before I had to meet James at the park. We met up and sat down at a picnic table where I asked James if it was okay if Amanda recorded our conversation so I could reflect on it and possibly use it for therapy sessions. I started therapy around month 3 after the fallout. He agreed and then asked me how I was doing, what's going on with my life, etc. I answered the first 2 and then said, James, let's skip the formality, please. I could tell from my calling him that instead of, Dad, getting under his skin, he relented. The conversation then went like this. Me. What took you so long to finally find me, and would you have looked for me if Tobias never admitted what he did? James. I only just found out a few days ago that Tobias was lying. I would have looked for you eventually to mend things, even if he wasn't lying, but I needed space. Me. Why did you need space? James. Well, when you were around the age of 4, I had a steady girlfriend that I was seeing cheat on me. That's why you never saw me in a committed relationship for more than a few weeks to a month. Me. Why were you so quick to believe Tobias and not hear me out? James. He had actually been drip-feeding me his doubts over text about you and how he thought that you were the one cheating, and he asked me to keep it between him and myself. I figured that if you were actually cheating and I confronted you with no evidence, you would just lie and pass it off because that's what my ex did before I had solid proof. Me. Are you still in contact with Tobias, and if not, for how long did you guys keep in contact? James. We stayed in contact for around 2 weeks. He was over at my house every other day until he met a guy who ended up cheating on him, which made him realize his guilt and come clean to me. Me. Did you two ever think about hooking up? Did Tobias or you ever try to Duce the other? James. Of course not. Not only do I not pine for men that much younger than me, but I see him as my other son. He also never made any advances toward me. He pulled out his phone for proof and showed me his text messages. Me. How can I trust you again? You tossed me to the curb like yesterday's garbage without even hearing me out. James. In tears at this point, to be honest, I don't know. I know that I have zero business trying to come back into your life after what happened, but I've missed you so much. I'm willing to do anything at all to mend this relationship between us. I've told Tobias he is dead to me and to never speak to me again. I'm sorry for everything, for me, for what Tobias put you through, for the way I treated you and spoke to you. I sat in silence afterwards. After James begged and cried softly to be in my life again, I managed to stay strong until I got home to write this update where I've broken down. This may be where I made a mistake. After he finished, I told him that I was willing to reconcile with him, not as a father but as a man. I said that he's going to have to prove to me that I can rely on him and trust him before he gets to be called dad by me. I said that while I do accept his apology, it is going to be a while before I completely forgive him and that he is an acquaintance to me right now. I also told him that we were going to therapy and that if he refused, he wouldn't get to see me again. He instantly agreed, hugged me, I didn't reciprocate, and told me he was going to spend the rest of his life making it up to me. He asked me if I needed any help financially, and I told him no. I then told him about my new job and how I got my dream career after getting my degree, which I wished he could have been there for. He broke down again and cried, apologizing repeatedly. I assured him that I do not have any ill will towards him, but he isn't my father yet. We said our goodbyes, and Amanda and I went home. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not sure if reconciling like I did was the correct move, but I do not forgive him, at least not now. I may sometime in the most likely far future, but right now that wound has cut me deeply. Amanda has been so supportive and caring, and I honestly couldn't have done it without her. I love her so much, you guys have no idea. As for Tobias, he hasn't sent me a single message or text, and I don't care if he ever does. That slimy effing rat can burn for all I care. Second story. Op opened his son's iPad to get Minecraft, a game he's desperate to play, only to discover his wife's affair for the past year and a half after seeing their Snapchat messages, and decided to go nuclear on both his wife and her affair partner by exposing them. I'll get straight to the point. I, 29M from the UK, and my wife, 29F from the UK, have been together for 13 years since college days but have been married for 5 years. We have a 9-year-old son, and 2 years ago, my wife bought him an iPad. Little did I know that device would cause the end of my marriage. My wife has never been overly attached or secretive about her messages when I'm around. We've shared our passwords as a sign of trust, so I never had any reason to suspect her of cheating. My son asked me to buy him Minecraft, so I said sure. I went onto the App Store, and in the Today tab, there was a section called iPad Essentials, and Snapchat was there. I thought it was strange for an 8-year-old to have Snapchat. I asked my son why he has Snapchat, but he didn't know what Snapchat is. Maybe he accidentally downloaded it. Curiosity struck me, so I opened Snapchat, and I think you can guess the rest. My wife made a Snapchat account which is 1.5-year-old on my son's iPad and added one guy who we will call JRCHLE because it rhymes with his actual name. Regrettably, I lack concrete evidence of their explicit communication. All I have evidence of is JRCHLE on my son's iPad, plus the fact that Snapchat's messages and images vanish within 24 hours. Contemplating the notion of impersonating my wife and reaching out to JRCHLE on Snapchat briefly crossed my mind. However, I swiftly discarded the idea, wary that my wife might have JRCHLE listed in her contacts on her iPhone. Such an action could potentially raise suspicion about why she would be simultaneously messaging him from 2 separate devices. Despite this, I opted to leave the Snapchat app and remove any traces that I found when I opened it. Moving forward, I downloaded Minecraft onto my son's iPad. Following that, I took a moment to peruse my wife's Instagram, searching for any traces of connection with JRCHLE, but found none. However, a different story unfolded on Facebook, where I uncovered that she indeed followed him. Thankfully, his profile was publicly accessible, affording me a glimpse into his life and how it could assist my nuclear option. Notably, his online presence featured images suggestive of a wife and 2 children. Furthermore, it appeared that his primary hobby revolved around hiking. As evident from the catalog of pictures captured amidst his various hikes, in case I wanted to go nuclear, I found his wife and his parents' Facebook profiles. So, Reddit people, I need help with an endgame plan. Do I go completely nuclear and be a complete ARL and try to ruin my wife and JRL's lives by exposing them to everyone? I studied sociology and psychology for levels years ago, and I don't want to create a toxic environment for my son, so what should be done? Update. Hello everyone. Please note that not much has advanced from my previous post, and this will be a slow process. However, I will document as much as I can. Initially, I extend my sincere appreciation for the guidance and advice I've received previously. While I will acknowledge the assistance I received, I regret not giving acknowledgement to the few individual contributors who helped me. Should you wish for credit, kindly inform me, and I will promptly edit my post. Before I continue with this update, I would like to clarify 2 minor points. Firstly, I'm from the UK, and of course, the educational system isn't the same as the US educational system. Some Americans were confused as to why I spent 2 years in college. To simply put it, college in the UK is basically high school in the US. You spend 2 years in college before deciding whether you want to go into employment, do an apprenticeship, or go to university. The world isn't resolved around the US. Secondly, a Reddit user asked why I didn't show any kind of heartbreak or upset. To answer this question, I felt more anger, hence why I want to take a nuclear approach, but I need to plan ahead. Moving on to the update. Following a recommendation from a Reddit user, I decided to view my son's screen time activity. Upon review, I discovered that, on average, she spent approximately 20 minutes per day on Snapchat according to data available up to March 4. However, it's worth noting that screen time statistics may not be 100% accurate. Another Reddit user recommended that I acquire the services of a private investigator, and thus I followed through with their suggestion. Although it entails a significant financial investment, I am hopeful that the investigator will provide vital evidence to prove my wife's infidelity, which I intend to present to legal counsel upon initiating divorce proceedings. Also, it's worth noting that the UK justice system doesn't really care about infidelity when it comes to divorce. However, I want primary custody of my son, so adultery will be considered. Finally, another Reddit user told me to see if JRL is on my wife's phone contacts, but unfortunately, I haven't had the time to go through her phone. In preparation, I've drafted 2 plans that I could use against my wife. Plan 1. Going fully nuclear, showing evidence to everyone of my wife's infidelity, even showing proof of JRL's infidelity to his family. Also worth noting that regardless of which plan I choose, I will tell JRL's wife the truth, as he deserves to know what kind of home wrecker her husband is, and serving divorce papers right in her face. Plan 2. To go nuclear. With hopefully vital evidence provided by a private investigator, I can tend my wife with the evidence I've obtained and persuade her to not contest the divorce and let me have full or primary custody. Otherwise, I will go scorched earth. Of course, these are drafts, but let me know if you have any advice on how I should proceed with this. This will be a slow and mentally draining process, but I hope to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Update 2. Hello everyone. You may remember me from my previous posts, which I have linked above. For this update, I will discuss a few minor points before ranting about how my life has been since discovering my wife's affair and my mental health struggle. I'd like to acknowledge that while this may be stretching the boundaries of Reddit assistance for me, these posts serve as a form of cost-free therapy. My experiences with professional therapists have been less than satisfactory, a situation I'll delve into later. However, on Reddit, I found a sense of genuine concern and support from the community, despite the presence of a few trolls. For this, I am sincerely grateful to you all. Now, on to the minor points which I will discuss briefly. Firstly, I want primary custody for my son for 2 reasons. Firstly, my wife works more hours than me, as her job is way more demanding than mine, and I take care of my son more. Secondly, I'm horrified by the fact that her Anothr pic was on my son's iPad. So, overall, I believe he will benefit from staying with me. I also never intended on taking my child away from his mother, but nonetheless, she caused the family to collapse by failing to keep her legs closed. Secondly, a Reddit user suggested that she could be having an affair with a coworker, so I've arranged a meeting with her colleague, whom I consider a friend. Thirdly, I've concluded I'm going to take the less nuclear approach, but with a few minor adjustments. Finally, and with significance, I felt inclined to postpone contacting a lawyer initially as I wanted concrete evidence from a private investigator. However, upon receiving numerous recommendations from the community, I gave in to their advice and sought legal counsel. I've come to realize it's key for me to stay several steps ahead of my wife, considering the possibility of her initiating divorce proceedings. I will talk about why I'm not a fan of therapy, and the simple answer is that my therapist didn't care for me at all. During adulthood and childhood, my father cheated on my mother multiple times. Somehow, they are still together to this day. Of course, therapy and psychology have advanced since I last had a session, but I just deeply remember explaining my issues to my therapist, and she replied in a monotone, "Anything else?" and ended the session. I feel like I'm traumatized by these words. I have rarely expressed my issues to people until I made this Reddit post, and from my experience and the advice I've been given, I feel like unqualified Reddit users have treated me better than actual therapists, which sounds crazy to say. Now on to how life has been for me. Honestly, I've been struggling to hide my frustration and disgust. Yesterday, we had intimacy and intercourse because I've been accepting her demands. She knows I would never turn down intimacy, and I genuinely felt sick. I have no evidence that my wife's or JR's affair turned physical, but the mere concept of my wife opening her legs to another man frightens me. She questioned my peculiar motives, but I just joked that my Johnny isn't working, and she laughed. We left it at that, but I genuinely felt humiliated. My wife could be laughing about this situation with JR, and I'm just struggling to accept what life has become. I've also been overthinking. What if my son isn't mine? What if this affair has been going on for quite some time, and I've been too oblivious to recognize the red flags because I firmly held on to the idea that my marriage had no flaws? I'm sorry if this post felt like a rant, but I would appreciate advice on how I can hold on while knowing that my wife is having an affair. Secret voices. Since Op deleted his account, we couldn't know what happened, but let's just hope he divorced her and got full custody of his son. Third story. My man-child husband lost his job, spent all day playing PS5, and refused to look for any jobs. So, I gave him an ultimatum. Either be a house husband, taking care of our daughter while I provide, or we get divorced. The very next day, he bought my abusive mill and started acting like he did all the household chores and took care of our daughter. Long story short, my husband, 37M, used to work to support the family, while I, 36F, stayed home taking care of our 2-year-old daughter. Last month, he lost his job and told me he felt exhausted and wasn't eager to do anything. I said, okay, and offered to work so he could look after our daughter at home and get some rest until he felt better. By the way, our daughter goes to daycare, so it's mainly some housework and picking her up, but he said no, he needs his time to be completely free. I got furious because this means either I work while also taking care of our daughter, or our family will face significant financial pressure. But I stepped back anyway and had LL of a month doing everything while he hung out with his friends and played PS5. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and told him he had to choose between being a house husband or divorce. He chose the first, but it felt forced. I keep questioning myself. Was I too harsh? Any good advice would be appreciated. Update. I never thought this would draw so much attention. I'm trying to read as many comments as I can, and I really appreciate your opinions, especially those pointing out things I should have told him but didn't. I've decided to show him the post after work and see if we can have a real talk based on that again. Thank you all. I told my husband to choose between divorce and being a house husband. A comment. Something strange. 87, NTA. Adults with children don't get to have their time completely free. Bored Panda, 55, this NTA. It's one thing to not jump back into a job, it's another to ignore your family completely. You have a point. I didn't get any rest. Langle sucks. Actually, you had to take care of 2 children, just one was quite a bit larger. Judgment. NTA. Update 4 days later. So, I got off work, picked up my daughter, and showed my husband the post. After she fell asleep, I told him that millions had seen it and made various points. I admitted that my ultimatum was an impulsive reaction and that I preferred having a calm discussion to work through this. He said he was surprised I shared family matters on Reddit and that he wouldn't have done it. He said he wasn't feeling depressed, just tired and exhausted after years of working, and he just wanted to be childish for a bit and really enjoyed the month off. I kind of understood because we used to travel a lot before our daughter was born, and life has been harder since then. I told him I wouldn't force him to work and that he could take his time, as long as he could pick up our daughter and do the housework. He hesitated but told me not to worry. I thought this was the end of it. Then the next day, I came home from work to find his mother there. I was shocked because he hadn't told me anything. She started picking up our daughter and doing the housework. This is driving me crazy because I have never gotten along with her well, and my husband knows this. I feel like he asked her to come so he could continue being childish, disregarding how I feel. His mother raised him as a single mom, and according to my husband, she was very protective and planned to live with him for his whole life. He felt suffocated, so he went to a university far from home and reduced contact with her. I remember one time she came and got sick and vomited, and I cleaned up her mess. Suddenly, she asked her son to come and told him that her underwear was dirty and needed to be washed by hand that very night, even though we had a washing machine. My husband and I had agreed that our marriage was ours and that she wouldn't come and live with us. He broke his promise. I'm considering divorce, but I'm worried our daughter is too young to understand it. I've thought about holding on for a while, but these days of living with her are already driving me crazy, and I don't see a quick end. I've thought about being an A** and forcing her to leave, but that might lead to divorce. I really need some advice. Thank you all. TLDR. I, 36F, showed my husband, 37M, the last post, and we had a talk. Then, without asking me, he invited my mother-in-law to come, even though he knows I've never gotten along well with her. Comments. Open Incident 3D 6001. The best news is that your daughter is so young that once you get through the transition, she will just grow up with you two being divorced. My biological parents divorced when I was 2. I have no memory of them ever being together. This helps me a lot. Thank you for your words. 13 surgeries. It's far better for your daughter if you get her out of that unhealthy dynamic. I stayed in my nightmare marriage for the sake of my daughter, and sticking around for the crazy did more damage than taking her and getting the HLL out would have. She's grown up now and is in therapy. She's also gone to NC with her father. Please don't make my mistake. Open Incident 36001. And if you stay, you will teach your daughter to also choose a man who mistreats her. Imagine your daughter married to a man just like her dad, with a mill just like yours, and then make your decision. I would hate myself if this scenario really happened. You have a point. Thank you. Parison. It happens so easily and subconsciously. All of my ex-boyfriends are exactly like my dad, but my husband is exactly like my stepfather. I emulated the toxic relationship my parents had without realizing it, and then when my mom showed me a good husband and father and a healthy relationship again, without trying or realizing it, I found it for myself. Once I saw her in a good marriage, it was jarring when someone was showing red flags because it wasn't normal to me. But before, all I knew was toxicity, so the red flags didn't look so red. They were what I was used to. Good point. I'm starting to worry about the fact that my daughter would estimate it unconsciously. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories.